Most biomedical research today is funded by entities in the U.S. Most of though is funded not by the National Institutes of Health or by government, but it's funded by industry, by pharma, by the pharmaceutical industry. And most of that is done in the developing world. So most drug company studies now are not done in New York or New Jersey. They're done in India, China, Vietnam, Peru, et cetera. Think about it, just as our cell phones are not made here, they're made in India or Vietnam, so too medical research has been put offshore. It's much cheaper and there's much less regulation. If I'm a drug company, to do a complicated study, it's cheaper to do it in Peru than it is to do it in Peoria or New York. But as a result, there are problems. So you often have illiterate population. Some people work where their language was never a written language, for instance. In Xhosa, which is one of the major languages in South Africa, there's a word for cure. That's the only word. There's no word for treatment, for experimental treatment. So if you say, I'm going to give you this drug, the only word for drug is the word for cure. So if you say to someone, I'm going to give you this drug, it's an experimental drug, we don't know if it's going to work. What they hear is you're giving me the cure, for example. One other scandal, for instance, is Pfizer was involved in a drug for meningitis, a brain infection in Nigeria with children, and a number of children died. And so the government of Nigeria decided to sue Pfizer. And there was the Attorney General in Nigeria was leading the effort. And when WikiLeaks occurred a few years ago with Julian Assange, one of the things that came out was that Pfizer decided to go after the Attorney General and was getting the State Department involved to try to smear the Attorney General, that they were trying to dig up dirt on him, make up stuff, put it in the newspapers to embarrass him because he was going after Pfizer because these kids had died. So again, these are major problems. But these are difficult problems. So or some of these are. So when I interviewed people in the developing world about what the major ethical problems they face are on these committees, these research ethics committees, the number one problem, which surprised me, was money. And people said, if you pay people $500 or $1,000 to be in a study in the US, if you give people here $1,000, that's a year of salary, and you'll be coercing people. They'll be entering the study for the wrong reasons. But if we let you have our people cheap, we're letting you exploit our people. We're giving you our people cheap. So what do we do? So I think these are the kinds of problems that come up. I would say the answer is that there could be other things that be done, gifts in kind. They could staff a clinic for a year. They could build a clinic, things like that. But again, these are difficult issues. I was in one developing world country a few years ago, and where there was no road. You had to take a boat to get there. And the people said, "Do you want to see our hospital?" I said, "You have a hospital?" They said, "Yes." So they bushwhacked through the jungle, and they came to this building. It was a cinder block building. And they said, a Western company built this as our hospital. They said they would build the hospital. They didn't say they'd equip it or that they'd staff it. So they just built this cinder block shell. So again, these are symptoms of globalization in a way, in that you have wealthy companies coming to very poor areas. We all have the same biology, basically. And so it's cheaper to do studies in the developing world, but that creates lots and lots of moral problems.